Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss about the most deprived, disadvantaged sections of independent India. We are believing that we got independence. We are believing that we are having social, political and economic justice and equality in our independent India. But I will tell you one society, I will tell you one example. A society of people who are deprived of their resources, who are deprived of their rights, who are deprived of their social, political and economical justice. Those are none other than the denotified tribes. Earlier, these denotified tribes were being called as criminal tribes. Earlier, the denotified tribes were being called as criminal tribes. So what is the story about this denotified and nomadic tribes in India? The British India had branded some of the tribal communities as habitual offenders. Before that, those are called as criminal tribes. A legislation was being made by the British India by which some of the sections of the tribal people were being branded as criminal tribes. Which means crime is a genetical element, crime is an inherited element which will be flowing from one generation to another generation, which is crime. Denotified and nomadic tribes. The other name of these people, or the beginning, the first name of these denotified tribes are called as criminal tribes. I am going to discuss about them. There is a stereotype against the denotified nomadic tribes from police, from media, from all the sections of the people, including judges, that these people occupation is doing crime. As per their birth, as per their living conditions, as per their way of living, they are criminals. The total community, the baby in the mother's womb of the criminal tribes were being branded as the criminals. The baby which didn't come out of the mother's womb is also been branded as the criminal. Why? Because the baby is taking the life from the criminal mother. A section of the people, she belongs to the section of the people who were been branded as denotified tribe. A criminal by the virtue of birth, and the stigma continues till they die. The virtue, that identity, that stigma is associated from the birth and which is continuing till they die is the denotified tribal community. Most of the people in India doesn't know about this denotified and nomadic tribal communities who were earlier called as criminal tribes. What is their status of living? What is their social status? What is their economic status? What is their political status? Most of the people are unaware, but they are suffering with lot of stigma, negative stigma, discrimination, deprivation, exploitation. The Supreme Court had set aside its 2009 judgment and set 6 convicts free who were earlier sent to death row. This is very important. This is the current affair today. 6 people were being sent to imprisonment by the Supreme Court in 2009 because they were being fixed by the police because they belong to the criminal tribe. There is no inquiry, no investigation happened whether these 6 people who belongs to the denotified tribes really does any criminal activity or not. Just because they belong to the criminal tribe, they were being fixed into the case. So after 1 decade, the Supreme Court got the truth and the 6 people were being freed from the charges. Why they were being charged in 2009? Because of their identity, because of their birth, because of their ascriptive nature, that is nothing but by birth they are called as criminals, a criminal tribe. The Supreme Court judgment you can mention in your answer with respect to denotified tribes. It was the first of its kind ruling. They were convicted by multiple courts, including the Apex Court in a famous rape and multiple murder case of Nasik district. But the Supreme Court has reversed this judgment and told that there was a mistake happened. 6 innocent people were being charged with the mistake, charged with the punishment which they didn't did, only because they belongs to the criminal tribe, only because the court also believed that because these people belong to this community, hence is 100% correct that these people will be doing the mistake because of the stigma which is associated to them. The Supreme Court said that the 6 men were falsely implicated and roped in by the police. All 6 of them, who spent 16 years in jail for a crime they never committed, belong to the denotified term Denotified tribe formerly declared as born criminals. Born criminals. See, for 16 years, these 6 people were been suffering in the jail, in the prison, because of the mistake which they never did, only because they belongs to this particular criminal tribal community. So this judgment was been reversed, and the Supreme Court of India also asked the apology for this people, from this 6 people who belong to the denotified tribe. Like that, historical injustice happened to denotified tribes. Prominent and educated persons in law enforcement and government have also shown to have a bias against these denotified tribes. One example being former IPS officer Kiran Bedi also had tweeted in 2016, this is the tweet which I got. Kiran Bedi, if you see the date, it is 2nd August 2016. Ex-criminal tribes are known to be very cruel. They are hardcore professionals in committing crimes, rarely caught and are convicted. Generalizing the community, a Kiran Bedi, an ex-APS officer also, that is the level of discrimination which they are levied upon. Bedi's controversial tweet calling people from ex-criminal tribes as hardcore professional in committing crimes. Total group, total community. Why? Because crime is an activity of an individual, not of the community, not of the section of the people. It's an individual thing whereby one person or the 2 person will be committing the crime, not the community. But this type of statements or this types of prejudices leads to, if a Kiran Bedi, a popular person like Kiran Bedi, if she is coming with, Kiran Bedi coming with this statement, then obviously the community will be suffering. Denotified tribal population, criminal tribal population. August 31 is celebrated as Liberation Day by denotified nomadic tribes across India. Every year this day is celebrated as Vimukti Divas, or Liberation Day, by denotified tribes across the country. And this community is not asking for a holiday, this community is not asking for any reservation, etc. Just they want recognition as human beings. Just they want to get recognition as any other citizenship. We are not criminals, we are born human beings, we are not born criminals. That is what the denotified tribes want to tell to the world. So they want August 31st to be called as Vimukti Divas, Liberation Day, from the stigma which is associated to, denotified tribes. Critically acclaimed filmmaker and activist Daksin Chara says such cases does not surprise him or anyone in this denotified tribal community. He himself belongs to this particular tribal community. He wants to empower the society, he wants to empower the nation. The level of discrimination, the level of stigma, the level of negativity which is associated to denotified tribal community. So he is empowering the people. He is empowering the sections of the society with respect to the discrimination which is levied against this population. Wherever we go to talk to them, which is mostly in a poor bastis, they will always mention about the police brutality. The worst discrimination or the worst nature of punishment they suffer is from police brutality. Police directly will come, catch them and will go. Why? Because you belong to the criminal tribe. You took birth in criminal tribe. Denotified tribes are the tribes which were notified as criminal tribes under Criminal Tribes Act 1871. So 1871 was the beginning of their harassment, beginning of their torture by the British India, which continued till 1972. Today it is nearly 68 years happened. In 1952 the criminal tribes had been repealed and a new act called as Habitual Offenders Act came in 1952. By 2020-2021 it is 68 years of criminal tribes or denotified tribes. The birth of the criminal tribes happened in 1871 by the British India. The community were being confessed to one particular region. You are a criminal tribe, you have to be here itself. You will be controlled, you will be regulated by the enforcement agencies like police. Denotifieds. Just for their identification, they have to come near the police. Government of Independent India on August 31, 1952. Criminal Tribes Act was repealed only to be replaced by the Habitual Offenders Act. Nothing has been changed, only name has been changed. On this line, August 31st, they want to make it as a Liberation Day. Vimuktu Divas. This was the day on August 31st which happened. August 13th was a bill which was being passed and passed in the year day 31st. Habitual Offenders Act of 1952. Till date it is 68. Changing perception through films. So we need to change the perception of the people regarding denotified tribes. Like Nomadic Film Festival, very famous film festival in which the tribals films will be telecasted. The atrocities against the tribals will be telecasted. The development, how we need to develop the tribals will be telecasted in Nomad Film Festival, exclusive focusing on tribals. In this film festival, denotified tribals were being played. Their films were being played. Documentaries were being played. Challenging the stigma, changing the narrative is the theme of the community-based Nomad Film Festival. Started in 2016, Nomad Film Festival was organized in New Delhi, Bombay and Lathur. Many award-winning films like Sandeep Mane's Pandaria and Sriram Dalton's The Lost Behurpriya were screened there. The second edition of Nomad Film Festival was organized in 2018 and the third held in November 2019, but it got cancelled due to the pandemic. So this is the Nomad Film Festival, whereby mainly focusing on the development of the tribes and particularly denotified tribes, nomadic tribes, exclusive focusing on the development of the tribes through films. They want to bring a transformation. You can write this in your GS answers also, in your anthropology answers also, in your sociology answers also. If there is any question with respect to denotified tribes as well as tribal problems and what are the best solutions. Empowerment of the other sections, not tribal sections, other sections towards the tribal population. Empowering the other people, don't see stigma, don't see with the stigma towards the denotified tribes. Have a humanistic grounds. Nomad Film Festival. The objective of this festival was to show the issue of these tribes to people beyond the restricted communities and ideologies. It is to connect people outside boundaries. Most of the audience at their screenings are college students. The organizers said their target is exactly this group because when they will become journalists, IAS, IPS officers or go to any profession, they will be more sensitive about people who are around but invisible to them. That means there is a need for education need to be provided to the denotified tribes. When they become the officers, when they serve the society in an officer position, then obviously they know the real-time problem, so they can address the problem necessary. So there is a need for empowerment among the tribal population, mainly denotified tribal population. Impact of consciousness rising. Filmmakers are creative leaders. Daksin said, when my story goes on the screen, it is my responsibility to make the audience think. So think about, the audience need to be think, they need for us self-evaluation, there is a need for introspection, why we are looking at denotified tribes with contempt, hatred, enmity. So the films also make a difference. A culture point of view, a solution for the denotified tribes so that the stigma will not continue with these people. Daksin also shared that he was invited by the United Nations in 2007 where he screened his 19-minute short film called as Bulldozer. The film is based on the demolition of slums of tribals and the slum dwellers, subsequent protest through theatres, a subsequent protest through theatre, through art, how we can address the social problems. You can write about the bulldozer. So mainly this Daksin was been targeting the development of the denotified tribes by theatre. In the year 2007, United Nations Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination asked the Indian government to repeal the Habitual Offenders Act 1952 and effectively rehabilitate them. In its concluding observation, it expressed concern and stated that United Nations Convention on Elimination of Racial Discrimination, the so-called denotified and nomadic which are listed for their alleged criminal tendencies under the former Criminal Tribes Act continue to be stigmatized under the Habitual Offenders Act need to be repealed. There is a need for repealing of Habitual Offenders Act also. United Nations Convention on Elimination of Racial Discrimination also asked for it. These all points you have to use in your answer. The following year, the National Commission for Denotified Nomadic and Semi-Nomadic Tribes recommended reservations to around 11 crore people falling under the denotified nomadic or semi-nomadic tribe categories as available to scheduled caste and scheduled. So there is a need for, this commission told that there is a need for separate category of reservations for this denotified nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes. A separate category of reservation need to be provided to these sections. This National Commission has recommended for it. A measurement, a measure for their development. A reservation apart from SC, ST and APC. Then what is the situation in pandemic? For every topic, in your mains point of view, you need to have a pandemic point of view, coronavirus point of view. So what are the problems which are faced by these denotified tribes in this pandemic times? Already they are having the stigma. Already they are not allowed to interact with anyone. Then what is the position in pandemic? How they survived? Denotified tribes, being one of society's most marginalized section, are naturally one of the worst sufferers in this pandemic. The most sufferer in this pandemic time was this denotified tribes. Why? Because they were been suffering with the stigma. How they will get the medical equipments, how they will get the masks, or how they will get the PPE kits. Why? Because they are having the stigma which is taken by the dominant communities. What about the marginalized communities like denotified tribes? So these people are the worst sufferers in the pandemic. Why? Because already they are having the stigma. In pandemic, the increase exponential way, the discrimination was being increased towards this denotified tribes. Most of the members of the community survive hand to mouth. If they work, they will eat. If they work, they will eat. Hand to mouth. Now there is no job only because of pandemic. Then how they might survive? Hand to mouth was the survival mechanism which was for denotified tribe. But because of pandemic, there is no job. Then how they survived? The ones who survive on their traditional professions like performing arts have no means to earn their bread in the lockdown and other restrictions imposed to curb the spread of the virus. So there is no arts, there is no performance, there is nothing, no occupation. Worst sufferer. More than the virus, more than the pandemic, with hunger these people got suffered. And the stigma which is associated. Considering their nomadic nature, they don't have Aadhaar card, they don't have ration card. Why? Because they will be moving here and there. They are not getting any provisions which are provided by the government. Why? Because they are nomadic tribes. They are not recognized. They have no identification. So they are not having any benefits which are given by the government also. That is also one loss. Considering their nomadic nature, many people don't have ration or Aadhaar cards. Some of them have it, but they move to another address. Because of this, they are also deprived of government schemes. Besides, some even fear getting lynched for getting out to perform or beg in the situation. If they go out also, they were being lynched. Why? Because they are having the stigma called as denotified tribes, criminal tribes. So they are nowhere in a position to survive themselves in this pandemic times. As it happened with men of Nath, Panti, Dayari, Gosavi tribe. These are the tribal people who suffered. Nath, Panti, Dayari, Gosavi tribe in Nagpur region, and with other tribes in other states on suspicion of being child lifter. If they start begging, or if they come open to work any job, they were being seen with contempt. Sometimes they will be lynched also, believing that these people are criminal tribes, they might lift the children, child lifters. In this way, they were been suffering with a lot of stigma. So, the National Commission on Denotified Nomadic and Semi-Nomadic Tribes told that there is a need for reservations for these people apart from SC and ST is a good note for this historically disadvantaged sections who were been branded by their birth as criminals. There is a need for rehabilitation of these sections. By this note, I am concluding the session. Thank you. Please subscribe the video.